What if the greatest thief of your confidence wasn't a colossal failure or a harsh critique, but a whisper? A series of small, almost imperceptible choices you make every single day. These are the hidden currents, the subtle undertows, pulling you away from the shores of self-assurance. Many of us navigate our lives unaware of these quiet saboteurs, patterns woven so deeply into our routines that they become invisible. Yet these are often the very habits that silently chip away at our inner strength, leaving us feeling less capable, less resilient, and less sure of ourselves. Today, we delve into the shadows of our daily existence to expose 6 such insidious patterns. We will explore these subtle underminers, the quiet ways we might be diminishing our own capacity for unwavering self-belief. More importantly, we will turn to the timeless, practical wisdom of Stoic philosophy, not as an academic exercise, but as a guide to forging a path back to an unshakable core of confidence, built not on fleeting external validation, but on the bedrock of inner virtue and reasoned action. Let us begin this journey of rediscovery and empowerment, and if you stay with me until the end, I'll share a powerful ancient parable that beautifully illustrates how true strength and resilience are cultivated from within, enabling us to withstand life's inevitable storms. So let's begin our journey of uncovering these elusive yet impactful habits, examining each one in turn to understand its effect and its Stoic remedy. First, the just 5 more minutes deception, the snooze button syndrome. It often begins the very moment your day is intended to commence. The call to awaken sounds. What is the first conscious decision? For many, it is the almost reflexive reach for the snooze button. Just 5 more minutes, the mind pleads, seeking a small, immediate comfort. This act feels innocuous, a minor reprieve before the demands of the day. But consider this. This brief return to slumber is not true rest. It is, in effect, a self-imposed fog, an interruption of the natural transition to wakefulness that can cloud judgment and dull the edge of your resolve for hours to come. You are not truly gaining precious rest. You are initiating your day by stepping into a haze. From a Stoic perspective, this first decision of the day can be seen as a small but significant betrayal of your own reasoned will. You have set an intention to rise, and almost immediately you have allowed that intention to be overridden by a desire for fleeting comfort. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, often reflected in his meditations on the importance of rising to meet the duties of a human being, questioning the impulse to linger in warmth and inaction when purpose calls. This seemingly minor act establishes a subtle precedent. If you cannot honor this first simple commitment to yourself, how can you build the unwavering trust required to face larger challenges that demand discipline and firm resolve? True confidence is not merely a feeling, it is the deep-seated knowledge that you can rely on your own character and decisions. The repeated press of the snooze button whispers a contrary message. Perhaps you cannot, not even in this small thing. Over time, that whisper can amplify, eroding self-trust. The Stoic path here is to embrace prohoresis, your faculty of choice, your deliberate, reasoned will. Make your first act one of decisive engagement with your day. When the call to awaken comes, let your response be action, not passive delay. This small victory, this initial assertion of self-mastery, sets a powerful tone. As Epictetus, the Stoic sage, taught, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Begin by doing wakefulness, by choosing clarity over comfort. Second, the always-on never-present trap, cognitive fragmentation. Consider next the pervasive modern habit of attempting to engage with multiple streams of information and tasks simultaneously, what we might term cognitive fragmentation. In our hyperstimulated world, we often find ourselves juggling various demands, believing this constant activity equates to high efficiency. We might be drafting an important message while half listening to a colleague, or scrolling through updates while attempting to absorb new information. The truth, observable through simple self-reflection, is that the human mind operates best with singular, focused attention. When we attempt to multitask, we are, in reality, rapidly switching our attention between different points, and each switch carries a cost. This constant shifting dissipates mental energy, reduces the quality of our engagement, and often leaves us feeling mentally cluttered and perpetually behind, despite our busyness. Stoicism champions clarity of mind and the power of focused attention, what the Greeks called prososio. A mind that is constantly scattered and divided cannot engage in the deep reflection necessary for true self-understanding, nor can it apply its full reasoning capacity effectively to the tasks at hand. If your attention is perpetually fragmented, you rarely afford yourself the opportunity to complete tasks to the best of your ability. This can lead to a collection of unfinished endeavors and a persistent, nagging feeling of incompetence or inadequacy. Confidence is nurtured by the successful and wholehearted application of your faculties. When your attention is always divided, you deprive yourself of the profound satisfaction that comes from deep work and meaningful accomplishment. Seneca, the Stoic statesman and playwright, wisely observed, "To be everywhere is to be nowhere." If your mind is perpetually adrift in a sea of distractions, your confidence in your ability to truly master anything of substance will inevitably suffer. The Stoic remedy lies in cultivating mindfulness and deliberate focus in your tasks. Embrace the power of single tasking. Allocate specific, dedicated blocks of time for specific activities. When you are engaged in a task, commit your full attention to it. When you are resting, allow yourself to truly rest. Minimize external interruptions where possible. Create an environment, both externally and within your own mind, that is conducive to concentrated effort. Your confidence will naturally grow with each task approached and completed with your full, undivided presence. Third, the empty cup syndrome, neglecting self-care. This insidious habit often manifests as a cluster of seemingly minor neglects, foregoing a nourishing breakfast due to a perceived lack of time, subsisting on insufficient water throughout the day, sacrificing essential sleep for more stimulation, or relying on excessive stimulants to push through pervasive fatigue. We sometimes treat our physical selves as secondary, expecting optimal performance even when we provide suboptimal care. These are not merely physical oversights. They are direct impediments to your mental and emotional resilience. A body and mind running on empty cannot effectively support the clarity and fortitude essential for confident living. The Stoics, while emphasizing that virtue is the sole true good, understood the profound interconnectedness of mind and body. They viewed the body not as something to be excessively indulged, nor carelessly neglected, but as an instrument to be managed with reason, discipline, and appropriate care. How can one expect to make wise judgments, manage emotions with equanimity, or act with courage and conviction when the physical self is depleted, when the mind is clouded by fatigue or lack of basic sustenance? Confidence is steadily eroded when you consistently feel physically subpar. Your energy reserves are low, your mood may become more volatile, and your ability to focus can be significantly impaired. You may begin to doubt your capacity to handle daily stressors, let alone significant life challenges, because your very foundation feels unstable and unreliable. This is not about pursuing an idealized physical form for reasons of vanity. It is about the responsible stewardship of the physical vessel that houses your reasoning mind and enables your engagement with the world. The Stoic virtue of temperance offers a guiding principle here. Treat your body with respect, recognizing it as a crucial instrument for living a life of reason and purpose. Prioritize sufficient, restful sleep as the bedrock of your daily energy and mental clarity. Ensure you are adequately hydrated. Nourish yourself with wholesome food that sustains rather than merely stimulates. Engage in regular physical activity, not as a burdensome chore, but as a means of maintaining the vitality of your physical being. As Musonius Rufus, a prominent Stoic teacher, advocated, the philosopher must train both mind and body. When you care for your physical self with consistent discipline and respect, you build a reliable and resilient platform for a confident and capable mind. Fourth, the inner critic's reign, harsh, negative self-talk. Consider the relentless internal monologue that many of us endure, the voice of the harsh inner critic. This is the habit of engaging in overly critical, demeaning, or catastrophizing self-talk. It's the tendency to berate oneself for every mistake, to magnify imperfections, and to dwell on perceived shortcomings far beyond what is reasonable or constructive. This internal narrative, if unchecked, becomes a constant source of negativity, a corrosive acid eating away at self-esteem. From a Stoic perspective, this habit represents a failure to properly examine and manage our inner judgments, our fantaisie. Stoicism teaches us that it is not events themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them. This principle applies with equal force to the judgments we make about ourselves. A relentless inner critic deals in exaggerated, irrational, and unhelpful assessments. It distorts reality, focusing on flaws while dismissing strengths, thereby directly attacking our self-worth and our belief in our own capabilities. If we constantly tell ourselves that we are inadequate, that our efforts are futile, or that our mistakes define us, we will inevitably come to believe these falsehoods. This erodes the very foundation of confidence, which should be built on a rational and fair assessment of our ability to act virtuously and effectively. The Stoic solution lies in cultivating a vigilant awareness of this inner dialogue. Practice observing your thoughts without immediate emotional attachment, as if from a slight distance. When the voice of the inner critic arises, challenge its pronouncements. Question their rationality, their truthfulness, their utility. Is this judgment fair? Is it based on objective fact or on emotional reaction and distorted perception? Actively work to reframe these negative, often automatic statements into more objective, constructive, or even compassionate ones. Focus on the effort expended and the lessons learned from an experience, rather than solely on the outcome or the pursuit of an often unattainable ideal of perfection. Strive to cultivate an inner dialogue that is characterized by fairness, reason, and a supportive stance towards your own virtuous striving, much like a wise and understanding mentor might speak. This is about applying reason and kindness to your self-assessment, transforming the inner critic into an inner guide. Fifth, the someday I'll syndrome, chronic procrastination and waiting. I will begin when I have more free time. I will take that step when I feel truly ready. I will pursue that important goal when the conditions are absolutely perfect. These are the siren songs of someday I'll, that mythical place where noble intentions and grand plans often go to languish indefinitely. This tendency to postpone, to defer action, is not always born of laziness. Often it is rooted in a deeper apprehension, a fear of failure, a fear of judgment, a fear of not measuring up to an idealized standard. The longer you wait to engage with what you know, deep down you should do, the larger and more daunting the task often appears in your mind. What might have initially been a manageable step can morph into an insurmountable obstacle through the power of prolonged avoidance. You find yourself waiting for a magical surge of motivation, an unequivocal sign, or the perfect alignment of external circumstances that rarely, if ever, materializes in the complex reality of life. Confidence from a Stoic viewpoint is not a prerequisite that must be acquired before taking action. Rather, it is a consequence that is forged through action. The Stoics were proponents of deliberate, reasoned action, guided by virtue and an understanding of what is truly good. They recognized that personal growth, resilience, and self-belief are cultivated by confronting challenges, not by waiting for fear or uncertainty to magically dissipate. Each time you postpone a necessary or valued action, you subtly reinforce a narrative of inadequacy within yourself. You inadvertently teach your mind that your fears or hesitations are more powerful than your resolve and your capacity to act. This pattern of inaction starves your confidence of its most vital nourishment, tangible evidence of your own competence. You deny yourself the opportunity to experience your ability to learn, to adapt, to persevere through difficulty, and to reap the satisfaction of progress, however incremental. You remain in a state of inertia, and your self-belief, lacking the reinforcement of lived experience, can wither. The Stoic antidote is to embrace the principle of hic et nunc, here and now. Take action, however small or imperfect that first step may seem. Break down seemingly overwhelming tasks into smaller, more approachable components. As Seneca wisely advised, begin at once to live and count each separate day as a separate life. Do not aim for immediate perfection, which is often an illusion. Aim instead for consistent progress. Engage with the uncomfortable task. Each step taken, especially in the face of apprehension or uncertainty, becomes a building block in the edifice of your confidence. You earn genuine self-assurance by showing up and engaging with life, even and perhaps especially before you feel entirely ready. Sixth, the chameleon complex, excessive people-pleasing. Our final hidden habit is what might be termed the chameleon complex. The tendency to constantly adapt your perceived self to fit the expectations or desires of others, often prioritizing their needs and preferences to the detriment of your own, sometimes to the point of self-neglect or the suppression of your authentic voice. You might find yourself agreeing when you inwardly disagree, remaining silent to avoid potential conflict or disapproval, or diminishing your own aspirations so that others might feel more comfortable or prominent. This is not always an expression of genuine altruism or kindness. Often it can be an unconscious strategy to seek external validation, a subtle indication that your sense of self-worth has become overly dependent on the approval and acceptance of those around you. When you consistently betray your own genuine needs, deeply held values, and reasonable boundaries in an effort to please or appease others, you are, in effect, signaling to yourself that your own inner compass, your personal integrity, is less important than external pressures or opinions. Stoic confidence is, by its very nature, intrinsically sourced. It arises from living in accordance with your own well-examined values and the dictates of reason, from the quality of your internal character, not from external accolades, the avoidance of criticism, or the fleeting approval of the crowd. When your actions are primarily driven by a desire to gain favor or avoid displeasure, you steadily erode your self-respect, which is the very bedrock of genuine, resilient confidence. You cannot truly trust or value yourself if you are constantly outsourcing your decisions, your sense of direction, and your fundamental sense of worth to the shifting opinions and demands of others. As Epictetus cautioned, if you try to please everyone in all things, you will inevitably lose your own way, your own integrity. The Stoic path to overcoming this lies in the deliberate cultivation of self-respect by clearly defining and then wisely and courageously defending your personal boundaries. This requires a deep understanding of your own core values and a commitment to strive to live by them, even when it is challenging. It involves practicing the art of saying no gracefully but firmly when a request infringes upon your well-being or compromises your principles. Remember that your primary moral duty, according to Stoic thought, is to maintain the integrity of your own character and to act in accordance with reason and virtue. This is not an expression of selfishness. It is an act of profound self-stewardship. When your words and actions align with your authentic self, your confidence will be rooted in something unshakable, your own virtuous character and reasoned judgment, rather than the ever-changing and unreliable sands of external opinion. These 6 habits, often subtle yet deeply corrosive, can chip away at the very foundation of our confidence. They tend to operate in the shadows of our daily lives, their cumulative impact often unnoticed until we find our self-belief significantly diminished. But recognizing their presence and their mechanisms is the crucial first step towards reclaiming our innate capacity for inner strength and resilience. Now, before you go, to illustrate the profound power of focused internal work over these subtle underminers of our spirit, let me tell you an ancient story, the parable of the 2 gardeners. Once there lived 2 gardeners who used to grow the same plants in their respective gardens. The first gardener approached his work with a mind full of anxiety and a focus that was constantly scattered. He would plant a seed, then immediately begin to worry if the sun was too harsh or, conversely, too weak. He would water his fledgling plants, then fret that he had provided too much moisture or perhaps too little. If he noticed a weed sprouting near his neighbor's more flourishing patch, he would rush to pull it, often neglecting the immediate needs of his own delicate seedlings in the process. The second gardener, however, approached his task with a spirit of calm diligence and focused intention. His primary focus was always on what he could directly control, preparing the soil with meticulous attention, planting each seed with care, watering appropriately according to the needs of the plants and the conditions of the day, and patiently, diligently removing any weeds that dared to appear within his own garden. He did not waste his precious energy or peace of mind by worries about hypothetical disasters or uncontrollable external factors. He trusted the natural process of growth, and equally, he trusted his own consistent, reasoned effort. On a fine evening, there was a huge storm, accompanied by rainfall. The storm destroyed many of the plants. The next morning, when the first gardener woke up, he found that the plants had been uprooted and destroyed. However, when the second gardener woke up, He found that though the damage to his plants was minor, his plants were still firmly rooted. The plants of the relaxed, focused gardener had learned to do things on their own. So they had done their bit of work, grown deep roots, and made a place for themselves in the soil. Thus they had stood firm even in the storm. However, the worried gardener used to do everything for the plant, thereby not teaching the plant how to sustain on its own. The wisdom of this parable is clear and resonant over management or scattered, fearful reactions, but on consistent, focused internal work that allows our own roots to grow deep and strong. The hidden habits we have explored are akin to the actions of the first gardener. They represent a misapplication of energy, a focus on fleeting anxieties, or an attempt to control too much, which ultimately weakens our foundation and prevents us from developing true resilience. They keep us from learning to sustain ourselves. So the question to reflect upon is this: which of these hidden habits, these subtle patterns of thought and action, might be silently impacting the landscape of your own confidence? The journey towards robust, resilient self-assurance begins not with grand, sweeping gestures, but with keen awareness and the quiet courage to make small, consistent, and deliberate changes in the fabric of your daily life.